Welcome back to the Ham and Spam Retro Review. I'm Hammy. This beside me, this beastly bulging man.
I'm just here so I don't get fined. Hammy told me to shut up in the corner, stay in the corner, because he was going to take over today's episode. So I'm just here so I won't get fined.
Today's episode is a game I've been waiting to review for nearly 15 years. One of my all-time favorites, and that is The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess.
So we finally get to review this because something monumentous happened this past week.
Today, actually.
What?
Today.
The recording? What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about something great happened this past week that I finally finished it, and I've got your Wii U packed up, ready to go back home.
Oh, that is monumental. I was thinking because today, this very day, the day of recording and release, is the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda.
That is true also. I knew that we had said something about that, but no, I was talking about personally, like I this past week, we had a snow day. Gosh, this week's been forever. We have a snow day this week.
Every day's a snow day for me.
Yeah, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, Maze was at a school Tuesday, and I took that day to stay here with him and took the last 4 hours of the game, finished it, told you, and you said, "Okay, there it is. We're doing it. We're doing this game." So,
and it took you how long to beat it?
Like real life time or video game time?
Both.
Video game time, I think it's just over 45 hours.
Okay,
which is respectable.
It is. Did you 100% it?
It depends on what you call 100%.
Did you get all the hearts?
Nope. Lord, and I needed them sometimes. No, I did not 100% it. I did not spend all the time trying to find all the heart containers. I got the majority. There's 20 total?
Yep.
I think I had 15.
Okay, that's not bad.
So, without going through like some of the...
That just leaves 25 pieces of heart you didn't find.
I mean, it's 25 pieces of heart, but yeah. I think I've got 15 or 16 total hearts, so I thought that was pretty good for a non-Zelda guy. So
yeah, well,
former non-Zelda guy.
Well, and now that's the in-game time. How about real world time?
Let's see. We started talking about this. We started talking about this in episode 30. I remember episode 30 specifically.
2019,
because it was 2019.
Yes.
Because I started playing it then, and you said, Clint, you can get done with it in a week. We'll review it. I really want to do this game. And then I said, all right, Hammy, I got you. And I got busy and I couldn't get through the game. I said, Hammy, let's call an audible. Let's do Zelda Link to the Past on Super NES, because that's the one I had played the most ever growing up until this one now. So yeah.
You know, in the summer of 2007, in 1 week, I beat this game twice.
Really?
Yeah. And that was 100% both times.
But see,
less than 40 hours.
There's a lot of how do I say this? A lot of non-responsibility back in 2007.
Absolutely. Oh, those were the days.
I mean, that was a year before Maze was born. So, I mean, it was, you work a crappy job, you come home and you play video games all day. And that was it. That's what I was doing. So.
Oh, man. But no, Twilight Princess. So I think it's well known that my favorite game of all time is Ocarina of Time.
Yes. On one of our bonus episodes too, where we were talked about that.
Yep. And I remember after beating Ocarina of Time, I was excited for the next Zelda game to come out. Well, the next one was Majora's Mask, which, it turned out to be a good game. It
was a direct sequel though, right? Like
it is absolutely. Yeah. It's
back to back.
It's a direct sequel. And it was. I was kind of excited about it, but at the same time, you were a little kid again, and I wanted to be full grown, awesome Link
Right.
again.
Right.
So, it's like, okay, I got this, but it's still not quite what I want.
I think that was always my hang up with Ocarina of Time. And here we are, it's supposed to be a Twilight Princess review, but we're talking about other Zelda games. But it's the 35th anniversary of Zelda, so we can.
Well, in
go that
Ocarina,
way.
you only spend like the first 25-30% of the game as a kid. The rest of the time you're
Yeah,
full grown.
but that I can't get around that. Like
Oh,
that's
it's
weird to me.
Well, it's a time jump.
And I get that.
You can go back and forth through time.
But that's just kind of weird to me
Which, by the way, is why he's named Link.
because it links the past in the a link to the past.
Exactly, because in the original game they wanted the time travel elements and they couldn't do it because of time constraints and technological constraints. But they still called him Link because they wanted him to be a link between past and future, and the name just stuck.
November 17th, 2019 was episode 30.
There you go.
So a year and a half, might as well call it. Next month will be a year and a half. Or in 2 months it'll be a year and a half. We'll call it a year and a half since I've had your system.
Yeah, quite a while. But
you're not salty or anything about that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So after Majora's Mask came the GameCube, and then came the announcement of Wind Waker. There was actually a pretty good amount of soft backlash for Wind Waker because I think everyone else was wanting more Ocarina, and Wind Waker, of course, was the cel shaded graphics and
right.
It looked like a kiddie game pretty much. And I'll include myself.
I choked on water. Sorry. I made fun of it because I was like, it's a cartoon game. I mean, it's made for little kids or whatever. And like and me not being a Zelda guy, especially at the time, like I even made fun of it just because of the graphics.
Well, I mean, I was a Zelda guy and I was upset by it. A lot of people kind of were until you play the game and realize, well, I was wrong because the game was fantastic. And honestly, probably the most replayable Zelda game.
Really?
Of all of them. Absolutely.
Now that one was on GameCube. Okay.
But still, I think Ocarina came out in 96 or 97.
Yeah.
So we're moving on up into the 2000s. It's like we still want that next Ocarina. And sure enough, in 2006 was when Twilight Princess came out. Mm-hmm. That's what we've been waiting for. And if you go back and look at E3 from either 05 or 06, I can't remember exactly when they first showed Twilight Princess, the crowd pop when they realized what it was.
Seems like I remember that.
Is still recognized as the loudest crowd reaction in E3 history.
Really? People
went nuts. I went nuts watching it. And I was so excited to get this game. And it came out on GameCube, but it also came out on Wii. The Wii launched the same day Twilight Princess came out. Mm. So
God bless you, motion controls.
I was so determined to get this game. This would be the first game I was going to try to get on the day it came out. Mm. So when the day of release, I went to every store I could think of, and they didn't have it. No one had it, and I was so
heartbroken.
Oh, I was depressed, man. I had my money in my hand, walk in, big smile on my face. I need Twilight Princess for GameCube. We don't have it.
Shut up and take my money.
Yeah. So, and during the course of the day, I was talking to Jeff, who's also a huge Zelda fan. And at the time, he was living in Birmingham.
Pastrami?
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with
your cousin's
roast beef.
Roast beef, so he'd be pastrami.
Yeah, I think Jeff's pastrami.
Yeah.
Jeff, are you pastrami?
Text us on Twitter and let us know.
Anyway, so he was trying to find it too. He was having about the same amount of luck as I was. So that night I go to Jeremy's house actually. And he's talking to a friend of his that works at GameStop. They might have some, don't know, looking for it, trying to find it. I'd pretty much given up. I was like, well, I guess I'll just have to wait. I may never get it. And it's all the Wii's fault. That was the first time.
That's your initial hate for the Wii.
Exactly. That's where it all started. It's your fault, Wii. However, at Jeremy's house, I then get a phone call from Jeff. He's found 2 copies.
Oh, wow. too when you couldn't find any.
Exactly. I don't know where he found them. You know what doors he had to kick in, what legs he had to break to get them.
Where's my game? Where's my game?
But he had 2 copies, and his dad was visiting in Birmingham. And he's like, he can meet you at the gas station at the Asheville exit on 59. And I was like, yes. Oh God, please, thank you.
So you were at Jeremy's house. This is pre-Jeremy. This is pre-Moundville Jeremy.
Right.
This is Hylian Loach's 40.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We were, what were we, like 23 at the time?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, early 20s. So come back, meet his dad at the gas station, get the game. You know, his dad was probably wondering why I was crying. Go home, promptly play this game for, I think, 12 or 13 hours nonstop. And it's still, even though I was so fast or into it, I don't think I beat it until around Christmas. Because I like to take my time with these games. But, and it was everything I hoped for. And I remember Jeff, he and I would talk to each other while we were playing it.
Yeah.
It's like, did this happen? Did you see that? How awesome was that? You know, going back and forth. So a lot of fond memories for this game, going all the way back to then. And so,
well, on my playthrough, you know, where I started it back in 2019, I had a lot of fun. It took me a little bit kind of get into the controls and the different things that were Zelda-esque. And what I mean by that is, most of the time you see a video game, you remember watching the old cartoons and how everything would be kind of shaded a different color, but there'd be something that was shaded that would kind of pop. You're like, okay, that's going to be movable. They're going to do something with that object because you can tell it. So I guess when you play games like this, you kind of think, okay, well, that's movable. I can get that. Zelda doesn't. A lot of that stuff, in my opinion, kind of blends in with the walls. So you don't know if it's interactable or not.
Yeah.
And I ran into a lot of that, like switches and things I had to hit with an arrow and just different things like that. So I struggled with that, and then kind of knowing where I needed to go. But I digress. Like I said, I still really enjoyed the game whenever I was able to play through it. And this is really my first 3D Zelda experience. So like some of the boss fights and stuff, not super hard. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a hard game or anything like that, but it was challenging from the standpoint you had to figure out exactly how to defeat them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, you'd pause the game and ask Midna, and Midna would be like, hey, you have to get the shard of this mirror so we can go to the Twilight Realm. Hurry up. I'm like, thanks for the help. I hate you.
And this, I think a lot of people would consider the most Zelda of Zelda games, and that it follows that formula to a T. It's probably the most linear Zelda game. In fact, I think that's why I told you.
That's why you told me to do it, because it was not all over the place.
Right. It's pretty straightforward. Go from here to here to here, but it's a lot like Ocarina in that with Ocarina, you have the first 3 dungeons. You're getting these spirit stones so you can open the door in the Temple of Time and get the Master Sword. Mm-hmm. Then after that,
which is a la Link to the Past,
right?
Okay.
And this is, and then after that, you fast forward 7 years and you're collecting the spirit or the medallions. Mm-hmm. I think that's what they were called. Anyway, you're getting those things, and in this one, you spend the first 3, freeing the spirits,
right?
And then the next part, you're getting the shards of the mirror.
Right.
But just like with that one, you go 3 dungeons, Master Sword, and Twilight Princess 3 dungeons, Master Sword,
right?
And spend the rest of the game. The gimmick in this game is the wolf. But the dungeons always follow the same kind of pattern.
Okay.
And that you go in and you've got 3 items to collect.
Yes.
Or excuse me, 4 items to collect. You got the map, the compass, the item specific,
the power up,
and then the boss key.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be these puzzles, and you look at them. You have to look at the puzzles sometimes. It's like, okay, if I push this thing over here, it's gonna make that thing move, which is going to do this over here. And so it's solving a puzzle the whole time.
And I struggled with that in the ancient ruins portion. So you had the two statues, and you had to get them to move around to where they faced each other.
Oh, is that the one with the rod where you can take control of them?
Yes.
Yeah, Temple
Yes.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a little bit of trouble with that. I mean, obviously, once you kind of figured out the pattern, it was a little easier, but it took me a little while to figure out.
Yeah,
the
Temple
pattern.
Time was interesting. It was different. The dungeon item is always going to be, you usually get it from a mini boss you have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then you use that item to solve more puzzles
Right.
in the dungeon, and then you use that item to fight the boss.
Right.
Which that fight you were fighting Armagama.
Okay,
I'll
take
his
your word
name
for that.
The big spider.
Yes.
And you had to have the statues smack him with a hammer.
Yep.
But Twilight Princess follows that to a T. I mean, it's same thing over and over. Every dungeon.
Right. The pattern's the same. It's not doing the exact same thing
Right.
every time.
Yeah, just the pattern.
It's just the pattern.
You know what you got to do when you walk into the dungeon.
Right. Okay.
So that's
gotta
where
get this. Got to get this. Got to get this. Go fight the boss.
Right, and that's where Breath of the Wild kind of broke the mold because it didn't have those dungeons.
Right.
I mean, for good or bad, depending on how you look at it. Some people hated that. Some people liked it.
Well, they liked it enough to basically make a sequel to it, or
Yeah,
maybe, possibly. I don't know.
And to make it the best-selling Zelda game of all time. Which, by the way, before Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess was the best-selling
really
Zelda
I
game.
did
Yeah,
not know that.
At I think between 8 and 9 million copies.
Wow. And see, that makes sense why it's so beloved. I know there's a lot of people that, you'll see these things on Twitter that come across about, which one would, if you could only pick one and only play it forever,
Yeah.
or, take a red pill for these, take a blue pill for these.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I guess now that because Zelda is such a 3D franchise now, a lot of people don't care for Link to the Past.
I'm in that boat.
Really?
I'm not a big 2D Zelda fan.
Well, see, it's not. It's the story and the significance that makes it to where that's one of the ones I can't get rid of.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean I love them still, but
now if you're talking about purely gameplay, I think I tend to agree. It's not. It doesn't hold its place as well compared to the 3D titles, regardless of graphics or anything. It's just gameplay.
Well, it was Ocarina that pulled me in. Ocarina made me not only a Zelda fan, but I think Ocarina was the game that made me a real gamer.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, video games were fun unless I was outside.
Right.
And Ocarina is the game where it's like, I don't care what it's like outside. I'm staying in and playing this.
Right.
Because I have to see this through. But no, Twilight Princess, and I played, of course, the GameCube version. I've never played the Wii version.
I would not recommend it.
Yeah, it just, no thanks.
Not from experience, just in general, I wouldn't recommend it.
Now, you played the HD remastered for Wii U.
I did.
Which is actually the GameCube version. You can tell because Link's left-handed. And for the Wii, they actually reversed the map because they made Link right-handed.
Because most people are dominant, right-handed.
Right, dominant. With the motion controls. They also upgraded the resolution to 1080.
Yep.
From 480.
And that's crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about the resolutions and the high def that's made the jump over all of these years.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make somebody who listens to this podcast very, very happy. So last night I'm sitting here and Maze has got 6 friends over. I had 7 teenagers and preteens in my house last night.
Oh my gosh, you poor man.
Thank you. Who did not go to bed till about 4:30 this morning, from what I'm understanding. But I didn't go to bed till about 2. So anyway, I was kind of sitting around looking for something to play, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I kind of started Final Fantasy VII, the original.
What?
The original.
What? No.
Yeah,
Who are you?
I've not gotten far into it, but I've started it, and so there's that.
What are you playing it on?
The Xbox Series X.
Okay.
Game Pass. It's on Game Pass.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. I started to go with...
It's on Switch, too.
Oh, okay. Well, see, they don't have the remastered. I think the license for PlayStation doesn't run out for a little bit longer before they release it on other systems.
Yeah, and I'm gonna wait on it because they're doing the episodic thing. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I'm not either, because all you're gonna do is just, I don't know, you make people want to go ahead and get it or wait. I mean, I don't know. There's a Lost reference in there somewhere too, but
Have to go back.
but no, I've enjoyed what little bit I've played. I have found that every time, if I don't run in a straight line and I like bump up against a wall, I find that I have to fight somebody, and that's kind of my thing I don't like about it right
Random
now.
battles.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
you're
that
trying to
was
figure out exactly where to go, and like if you run a straight line, you run from this end of the room to that door over there, and not really touch a wall. You're usually pretty fine, but because it's isometric ish when you're running,
yeah.
it's kind of hard to turn corners and stuff, and
No, I'm with you. I'm not a fan of random encounters either.
yeah, I've had so many. It's like this just delays the game. Yeah, it gives you hit
So
points.
is it still in the standard definition?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so.
And it's so crazy to think 480.
Yeah,
compared to what we have now.
We got 4,000 something now.
Yeah. I'm talking about 8K.
Yeah, it's supposedly coming. I mean, the broadcast companies haven't gotten to 4K yet.
There you go.
So, I mean, the movies and stuff have, but like you can't watch ABC and it be in 4K. Not yet anyway. They just haven't gotten there.
Probably the anchors don't want it to be in 4K.
I wouldn't.
So, a few other differences with the HD is they added these stamps you can find.
Mm-hmm.
They also
I didn't get all of those.
Made swimming and climbing a little bit faster.
And you can tell too, because when you grab a hold of a ladder and start climbing, it's it's like it's very mechanical, like really, really quick.
They also made you have to you only have to find like 12 tiers of what are they called? Those tiers you have to get from those bugs when you were in the Twilight in the first part of the game. You know, you have to hunt down those bugs and collect their tiers so you could.
Oh yeah.
Free the spirit.
Yeah,
there were 16 in the original.
Okay.
So they made that a little quicker. Another thing they did is they added another dungeon. I haven't done this.
Well, see, I had to wait so long. I had to wait so long to recall that because it's been so long since I got from that.
Yeah,
point.
literally over a year.
So I was sitting there thinking, what is he talking about? Okay, I got you. Yeah.
So they added another optional dungeon that you do entirely as Wolf Link. And when you beat that dungeon, depending on how many hearts are, when you beat the dungeon, you can scan it into the amiibo.
See, I didn't get in all this, obviously.
It saves to the amiibo. You take it to Breath of the Wild, scan it, and it spawns in Wolf Link.
Okay.
And he's a companion. But the hearts he has in Breath of the Wild is dependent on how many hearts you have when you clear that dungeon in Twilight Princess.
Oh, really?
So if you beat it and you only got one heart left, you're going to have a 1-heart wolf. But if you beat it and you've got all 20, then there you go. Huh. You got a powerful wolf companion.
So before we move on, there was there was a couple of things specifically I wanted to talk about this game. The bugs that you're talking about to get the tiers.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you because that's where I ran into the Zoras. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was down to like 3. I couldn't find them. And one of them was in the Zora throne room, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up on the wall, like super, super high up on the wall. And I couldn't get to it. Like I couldn't make the camera get to it. So it literally took me, and I didn't know it was there. I was like, you kind of see the white speck a little bit on the map. It kind of told you where it was. And I looked and I looked and I looked. I said, maybe this thing's not right. Maybe it's somewhere else. Dude, I spent, that's probably where the majority of my just running around time was because I didn't know where that was. And then, like I said, it was so high up on the wall that I couldn't make Link look high enough to get it. So it's almost like it kind of glitched in a way.
Some of those were difficult. I didn't particularly like that whole part.
I thought there were some funny parts too, going back to that, because it was that was it the Yeti monster guy that would come in there and he got the fish and they're like, gosh, he got that fish and it stinks so bad. And when you got to Wolf Link, you'd literally sit there and follow the stench of the smell to try to find out where you needed to go. That was pretty funny. I don't know why.
So, and that's another thing. The Zelda games always have a lot of humor.
Yeah.
And to kind of break up the seriousness because they're not, terribly dark. This is considered one of the darker Zelda games.
Oh yeah, just given the environment that it's in, I could 100% see that.
But yeah, the whole first part where you're trying to collect the tiers, It's a little slow. It really picks up when you get the Master Sword to me, which was the same with Ocarina for me.
Right.
But
here's the thing. I'm not recalling getting the Master Sword.
Well,
at what point did I get the
I remember
Master
back when you first started playing it, watching you in the part where you're getting it, where you go to the Lost Woods and you have to fight those I don't think they were, I think there was a stall kid there, or stall children. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember that. My brain's just going blank. And he kept playing the flute, and it would bring out those puppets, those scarecrow puppets.
Yeah, okay.
And you had to follow him.
Yeah, because you had to get the Master Sword in the Temple of Time.
Yeah, well, you got to it, and you got the Master Sword, and you came back later and found out the Temple of Time is actually behind it.
Right.
Which is really cool.
That's what it was.
Kind of throwback to Ocarina in a lot of ways. Well, you know the guy that you find, the hero Shade, that is a white mystical wolf, and then you play his note. And I know you're talking about Carrie was asking you, what is that? When you're trying to howl with the wolf.
So I was playing with the game room door open, and I've got the volume on so I can hear everything going on. So when you're a wolf and you go to the you kind of get transformed, and he tells you the pitches. So you're always in the middle pitch. You got to go down, you got to go up, and you got to time it with how long the timing is, or how high or low pitched it is. And you're making a song out of it, because then the Wolf Link starts kind of bobbing his head like Gangster's Paradise is on or something. So
as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
The only reason I brought that up was because the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I don't know why, because that was in that too. But yeah, I would hit the high note because I didn't really know what I was doing the very first time I did it. I was just up and down, up and down. It's like,
just making noise.
Yeah. So Carrie, I hear Carrie, she's watching TV, and all of a sudden I hear the TV pause. She's like, what is that? What are your dogs doing, Caitlin? So she's freaking out, thinking that the dogs are howling at something outside, but it's, Wolf Link in here not knowing how to operate his howl pitches.
Well, when you get that right, the hero Shade teaches you a new move you can do. Did you know that the hero Shade is Link from Ocarina of Time?
No, I did not.
As confirmed by the Hyrule Historia.
Guys, I almost wish this was a video podcast sometimes, because Hammy waved his finger as described by. Nay, I say.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not video now.
No, we tend to talk with our hands quite a bit.
But I think that Nintendo really wanted to drive home the fact that, hey, this is a sequel to Ocarina that you have been bugging us for a decade.
Here, shut up, dang it.
So there's that connection. So it's cool to see the Hero of Time make a cameo.
Well, and then you've got the skeleton guy. Or are we talking about the same person?
We're talking about the same person.
Okay. Well, you said the white wolf was.
Yeah, that's the same.
Okay. Well,
he appears as a wolf.
You had told me that the skeleton guy that you learn your moves
hero
from.
Shade. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So yes, I did know that, but you had told me that. That's the only reason why I knew.
But yeah, and we're talking about the formula that it follows. Again, it's got the same familiar places. You talked about Zora's domain. It's going to have Death Mountain with the Gorons.
Yep.
Gerudo Valley. Well, I don't think the Gerudo were even in this game.
I don't recall them.
It was the Arbiter's grounds in this, which was the Gerudo Valley. But that's where you see what happened to Ganondorf.
See, this is where I lose you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm about to go full blown.
Okay, and that's fine. That's fine. I want you to, because I mean, this has been building up for almost 15 years.
All right.
So, and I want you to go there, but you start throwing out these names and stuff. So, like, I remember
the desert place,
the Zora
sand.
Thank you. You're gonna have to dumb it down and tell me where you're at, and then go into Hammy mode, okay? Because I don't remember half of what you're about to say.
Well, here I'm about to go into,
and
the
not
story.
Because it's been a year. Like some of this part was like very recently, like within the last couple of months,
right?
And then like the last part of it was just this week. So,
all right, well, buckle up, because here's the story.
This is where Clint is just here because he don't get fined.
So the point of this story is, apparently Hyrule was being invaded from the Twilight Realm, which is a parallel universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as far as you know, the main antagonist is this guy named Zant, who's leading the forces. Now, Midna is from the Twilight universe, but she's trying to help you because apparently she's a deposed ruler of that.
You come to find that out.
Right. And, you find Zelda. Zelda's able to heal you, turn you back human for a while, or excuse me, Hylian for a while. But on later, you find out that Zant was kind of led astray to what he's doing by Ganondorf. So, going back to Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is recognized as having created the multiverse of Zelda, these split timelines. There are 3 canonical outcomes from Ocarina of Time. The first one's called the Child Timeline.
Okay.
And see, it comes about because after you beat Ganon at the end of Ocarina of Time, Zelda sends you back as a child so you can warn everyone and they can stop Ganon before he completely annihilates Hyrule.
Okay.
The second timeline is the adult timeline, which happens after you beat Ganon. You've beaten Ganon, but Hyrule is still destroyed. So time goes from there. So you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Time goes from where he doesn't destroy Hyrule and where he does. Now, the third one is called the Downfall timeline. And that's where he beats Link and Zelda and destroys Hyrule. And, everything's just horrible after that. Now, there are all the different games are set in either of, and those 3 timelines are before Ocarina.
Time out. What you've explained to me is almost, and you're going to hate me when I say this is almost Sonic CD. So in Sonic CD, you have to run past these goalposts.
Yeah.
And if you run past the right goalpost at certain times with so many rings, I don't really know how all that works. You can get one of 3 futures. You can get a good future, a bad future, or just basically an okay future.
Yeah.
So that's what this is kind of reminding me of. Now, Sonic CD to me is not part of the original.
Well, no,
ones, but it's there. It's along.
No, you're right. It's the same, except all 3 of these outcomes are recognized as having happened.
Okay.
So that's why you have the split timelines. Now, Twilight Princess takes place in the child timeline, which means it's in the same timeline as, of course, Ocarina, but also Majora's Mask, and I think 4 Swords Adventures. I'm not 100% sure on that. So what you're seeing...
How do you know that? I mean, is it just a research that you have to do to figure out where this falls into line?
Yes.
Is it really? Or
no, they've released it. I mean, you can get, like I said, the Hyrule Historia, the book that details everything. And man, I feel like such a nerd talking about it. I hope no one I know listens to this. So anyway, now that we've got that established, this is the timeline where Link, as a child, warns the King of Hyrule, and they're like, "Oh, hey, he's evil. Let's get rid of this Ganondorf fella." So you see a flash of when they have Ganondorf chained up at the Arbiter's grounds, and the sages, which are the 6 powerful, guardians or whatever, are going to banish him to the Twilight Realm.
Right.
And it's kind of sad because you see that he kills one of them.
Right.
And the one he kills is the water sage, which you can't. It's just a shadowy figure when you see it, but having played
Twilight Princess,
Ocarina of Time,
never mind,
that it's Princess Rudo of the Zora.
Okay.
So that's kind of creepy. He killed Rudo. So anyway, he gets banished to the Twilight Realm. Out of sight, out of mind. Well, he has since,
gained power back in the Twilight Realm.
Gained power or influence over Zant. Now that they've invaded, so Ganondorf is back.
So, I guess a little bit of a spoiler alert because we're not there necessarily in the story or the review, but I saw where Zant was talking about Ganondorf, and basically Ganondorf in the Twilight Realm was the sun, I guess. I don't know. It was weird how he took over. Like, he just kept swelling and swelling and swelling and kind of absorbed Zant.
Well, a lot of that could be like metaphor.
and perhaps, but I just
And
thought it was
and
funny
I think
that
that's how Legend of Zelda tells a lot of stories. If someone tells something, it's almost like a tall tale.
right.
I mean, it represents what happened, but not literally.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I just kind of saw him as a nebula, I guess, getting ready to explode. It just kept getting bigger and bigger. Eventually, he absorbs Zant, and then that's where he kind of
that could have been, metaphor for his influence,
right,
possibly.
right.
So over the course of the next part of the rest of the game, you go to these different temples and dungeons, and you're getting the shards of the mirror, so you can put the mirror back together that he shattered.
Man, we're skipping a lot through the game, but that's fine.
Well, I mean, it's it's an overall review, and
well, see, I really liked. Like, I had a hard time with the rock people,
the Gorons.
Yes,
we'll come back to
Okay.
the individual temples.
Okay, that'll work.
So by the end of it, you beat Ganondorf, and you're able to send him back. Or no, you kill him, but then Midna goes back through the mirror to her own place, to the Twilight Realm, but she shatters the mirror, so the Twilight Realm can never invade Hyrule again.
So there was some dialogue there where Midna shows her true form.
Yeah.
She's very beautiful, and she's kind of cocky about it too.
Yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, you didn't expect me to be so pretty, did you? You stupid idiot."
She was a great character.
She had a good attitude. They wrote her to have a good attitude, and sometimes that makes you kind of associate more with that character. I don't
identify with them.
Sure.
I think of all the different companions that you've had in the Zelda games, she's my favorite, even more than Navi.
So the one thing,
listen,
up here. The one thing that I did,
look out.
The one thing that I did in this game that I had seen online for people to do was I named my character my dude.
Yeah.
So it just made the dialogue, because obviously nothing's being said. It's all, typed out, and you're having to read it. It's like, my horse's name was your mom.
Yeah.
Hey, my dude, ride my mom or your mom. Ride your mom into town and go get some, I don't know, feed or something. But it just made for some funny chuckles.
Made the game very chill.
Yeah, it did.
It's like, oh, I see you finally come, my dude.
My dude.
I
felt like I was watching The Big Lebowski.
Oh man, I had to go back to a playthrough as Lebowski.
There you go.
One of the complaints when this game first came out, or I remember two in particular. Number one, no voice acting, which cracks me up, because after they put voice acting in Breath of the Wild, those same people are harping about it being in there. So you shouldn't have voice acting in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
They were calling for it.
Yeah.
Back then. It never bothered me.
But see, Link doesn't have any voice acting though. His is all just the there's a lot of that that I was doing. The good thing about that is, so like when you got like to the Sky Temple and you let go, or you're kind of hang in certain places and things like that, or your hook shot, as I'm doing hand
claw
gestures. Claw shot, my bad.
It's basically the hook shot. They just renamed it.
Okay. Yeah, I would fall, and then I'd end up back at the door that I just came through and only lost like a quarter of a heart. So I was very thankful for that a lot.
But the second complaint was that the music was done electronically. They wanted like an actual orchestra. And I agree with them, especially with HD Remaster. I wish they'd gone back and done that with an actual.
Well, we just talked about some of that with
strings and stuff.
Halo 2, with our review in that, where they went back and redid some of the songs, and they really brought it to life compared to what it was. And not saying that the first one was bad, but when they redid it, it
added to it.
Right.
Well, the same with, the soundtrack's fantastic for Twilight Princess, but I can see what they mean. I would love to have heard, an actual orchestra do some of those tracks.
And this was a part two.
Midna's Lament. Oh my gosh.
Well, and this is a part two where Nintendo had finally made that transition over to disc, so they could get a lot of that more crisp sound than they could with the cartridge.
If they had gone to disc instead of mini disc.
Wow.
That's what held them back on the GameCube so much, was the fact that they went to mini disc. If they'd gone to full blown CDs or even DVDs, there's no telling what they could have accomplished because it was a powerful little system.
Let's just be different to be different.
Yep.
And we'll get into that here.
Which they went to Wii, and it was on a full disc, but I mean, it was.
But I always thought that the mini disc could actually, in some weird way, hold more information than a standard disc could. Could it not?
No, there's a lot of games that, third-party games and such, where you have to have 2 discs.
Really?
Whereas other systems had 1.
Okay.
So yeah, no.
So they took
a Resident Evil 4 is on 2 discs.
Okay, so they took a page out of PlayStation 1's book.
Right. Enter the Matrix is on 2 discs.
Okay. I did not know that. I always assumed that even though it was smaller, that the data was more compact and that you could get more on it.
Well, Nintendo
and because it spun faster too. Spanned. I don't know what the spanned. It spanned faster too.
Anyway, Nintendo is pretty good at making their games pretty compact. But no, yeah, anyway, yeah, I guess that's why they couldn't fit stuff. Maybe it was a design choice, but whatever. So the temples, the dungeons.
Yes.
Do you remember the forest temple, the first one?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember the item you got from it?
I do not.
Boomerang. How dare you?
Oh, yeah, it was. It was the because they changed the boomerang up a little bit. It had this tornado feature to it.
Yeah.
I ended up using that quite a bit.
It was a really good little.
It's very very useful.
After that,
especially like if you had something kind of far off, and you're like, "Hey, I need that item. Let me take the boomerang, lock on, throw it over there, and it'll just bring it back to me."
There you go. Did the exact function it was supposed to. Then you had the Goron mines.
Yes.
Now, do you remember the boss in the first one was that giant plant? The boss in the Goron mines was that big dude that was a fiery guy that was chained up. Fyrus, I think was his name.
Right.
That you got the iron boots, which were in Ocarina again.
Oh, okay.
Then next was the Zoras, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Their water temple, which is called Lake Bed. The
The
water temple from Ocarina is infamous.
Well, one of the things you had to do, you had to find the missing prince.
Yeah, that's what you're going for.
And then he was just wanting to find his parents' gravesite. Is that correct?
Yeah, because his mom had died. I can't remember when she died.
Right. But once you got him to where he needed to be, that's when you got the Zora suit and was able to go underwater for longer. If memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, I think it allowed you to breathe underwater.
Yes, the Zora suit does.
Which was in Ocarina, but it was just blue in Ocarina. And you couldn't
it's
swim.
just blue. It's just blue in this one too.
No, it's got a few aesthetic differences.
Okay, but it's still blue.
Yeah, it's blue, but it's like in Ocarina, it was literally your tunic just blue. It was just a color swap.
That's what I saw here too.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then you looked at it wrong.
I probably didn't look hard enough. I was like, okay, he's got a blue suit. Blue means water. Gotcha. Let's keep going.
No, it had some aesthetic differences, but it allowed you to swim and underwater and do some things. Whereas in the first one literally just lets you breathe underwater.
So that boss fight, woo,
more feel, yeah,
underwater with having to use because you only had a single claw shot at that point, I think.
Yeah,
and it was rough because you had to ride on its back. You had to get its eyeball.
Yeah, pull its eyeball out and smack it.
Pull its eyeball out, smack it. But then its eyeball ended up on its back, so then you had to hook shot it or claw shot it. Its eyeball on its back.
I'll let you say hook shot. I was just messing with you.
Okay. Well, I need to say the correct term, I guess. But you had to claw shot it on the eyeball on the back, and you had to ride it and then keep hitting it as you were riding it. So that's kind of a reoccurring theme as you go through the game once you got the claw shot.
Yeah, the bosses were very epic in this game.
I thought that they were really, really epic because if you look at how big in correlation of size, how big the bosses were compared to your character. Dude, man, get after it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, hey, let's roll and hit him with a sword and
That's
use
why
some
he's got
items,
the Triforce of Courage.
All right. Glad that you brought that up. Why is there no Triforce in this?
There is. It's just
a lot of references. But
starting with Ocarina, the Triforce was split amongst 3 people. And you had the Triforce of Courage, which Link has, the Triforce of Wisdom, which Zelda has, and the Triforce of Power, which Ganon has. And if you bring them together, then you can get the full Triforce. Or which they've kind of done away with that somewhat. Like they kind of go back and forth with it.
Okay, so
Sometimes it's an item you have to find. In this case, it's like the living embodiment of certain characters.
toward the end of the game, when Ganondorf is squeezing his hand, you see the Triforce emblem on his gauntlet. That's he's drawing from that power.
Yeah.
And then when he squeezes it, it doesn't do anything. He's lost that power, I guess.
Basically, it's like left him.
Okay.
Which is
So that's odd because I grew up, obviously with a cartoon
mm-hmm.
where all they were doing, they were always trying to find the Triforce,
Yeah.
I've actually played and beaten the original Zelda on Switch. Thank God for the rewind feature, where you're finding all the pieces of the Triforce. There's like 6 pieces of the Triforce, which
by the
makes
way,
no sense. But
that takes place in the Downfall timeline. The original,
yes.
Also, Link to the Past is in the Downfall timeline.
Okay,
that's why Ganon doesn't make an appearance chronologically until Ocarina of Time. It's Ganondorf, born to the Gerudos. So it's always Link and Zelda are always being reborn, reincarnated.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the same Ganondorf.
Okay.
Twilight Princess, you fight the same Ganondorf from Ocarina. In Wind Waker, it's the same Ganondorf from Ocarina, just in different timelines.
Have they touched on that as a story?
Like why they're reborn?
No. Just Ganon. Just all Ganon all the time.
Not really.
See, I think that would be neat because like Skyward Sword talks specifically about how the Master Sword came to be.
And it also introduces you to Demise, which is basically Ganon. He was an evil god that got defeated and tried to come back, and Link, which was I guess the first Link, beat him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he cursed him that he would keep coming, that he would come back, and then they would keep having their battles for all eternity. So that's where that all comes from, is the whole reincarnation thing.
Right.
But after Ganondorf is killed, usually if he comes back, he's Ganon minus the dwarf, which basically just a big monster.
Okay.
That's actually I think his true form.
Right.
Not the more human form.
Not well. Is it Ganon or Ganondorf that's got the sweet A perm that was in Twilight Princess? Because that was pretty awesome.
Ganondorf. He takes care of his hair, man.
Yeah, he does. It's curled and perm, just perfect.
Doesn't guard certain moves.
Looks like a little orphan Annie running around.
So after the Lake Bed Temple,
which I struggle with the mid. What was the boss where you're on the platforms in the lake before you go down to the actual temple?
That was the bug.
I struggled.
I did too.
Hard with that guy
because it took me a while to figure out. Once you got him down, you had to do that move where Wolf Link attacks like multiple things at once.
Right. Well, it was hard to kind of tell where he was going to attack in a way, or get away from it in enough time. But then you're on that floating platform, so you've only got so much space to work with anyway. And he's doing a pretty big, good size, enemy, I guess.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that quite hard.
So after that, you get to what's the temple right after that? Is it Arbiter's Grounds? Where you have to get the spinny top.
Trying to think. Yes. That's the desert one, right?
Yeah, and I love that boss fight where you're going around that
around, you had to jump off back and forth on the column and get to the top and fight.
I really liked that item.
I thought
it had like zero use outside.
It had zero use outside of that. Outside of that, and then in the Sky Temple where you'd put it down and it would make platforms or whatever. Spinny top.
So that's the thing. A lot of these items you get, it's like, okay, I'm out of that dungeon. I don't need it anymore.
Right.
So I'm glad to see some of them getting some replayability.
Well, but here's the thing, man. When they went to the claw shot and then the double claw shot, like everything else was basically put on hold. There was nothing else really to use. Now I did realize that you had to use the boomerang again to find some of the items in the castle, in the Hyrule Castle, because there was the the spinny top things. I don't know what to call them. Like windmill things is what they look like. So that you had to spin those in a certain order, and it had to make almost a Z shape. So you had to hit 4. You'd only hit 5 items at one time, or at five different items with the boomerang at a time. But you had to hit 4 of them in a certain order, and it kind of made a Z shape. Because I actually found the solution to that puzzle on the ground. It was covered with leaves.
Yeah.
And you had to shoot the boomerang, clear out the leaves, and you kind of see, which ones needed to be, which ones you had to hit.
Then you get to the Snow Peak ruins, which is the snow mansion with the Yetis.
See, I think I went to Snow Peak before I went.
You may have. I can't remember which order it is.
See, there's an order, and it's linear, but it's not at the same time, because I had a little bit of trouble in the snow level. I had no trouble with the snowboard and everything. Everybody's talking about how hard that was. I love the snowboard, and that was fun. Did you do the
second race against his wife?
I've not.
That's the hard one.
Okay. Well,
no, the race with him is easy, but the race against her, she's a lot faster.
Okay.
You've got to take some shortcuts and be perfect.
Well, it took me a while because that's where I was talking about where things kind of blended in, because I finally ended up on the outside of the castle, and you're out in the elements, and there's a claw shot, and you have to get it just right. And there's one little area where you have to shoot through a wall, and it's got a hole in it. And it took me forever to learn what a stupid hole was, because I'm sitting there looking around and around and around, and I asked you, and you're like, well, I don't really remember. And I'm contemplating going online. I was trying to stay away from that.
And there's a lot of stuff in dungeons that you have to come back later when you get a different item.
Yeah. But that part really, like, I'll forever remember that, because how frustrating it made me. But when you got to the boss fight, there was the wife that was possessed, right?
Yeah, and you had to see a reflection in the eyes, which was a little foreshadowing that she was possessed.
Okay.
Foreshadowing of things to come.
With Zant?
With Zelda being possessed.
Oh, yeah.
After that, I think, is where you have to get the cannon. You launch yourself out of the cannon to get to the temple in the sky.
Yes.
Which didn't know it at the time, but it was a huge reference to Skyward Sword.
Oh, really?
Because Skyward Sword, everything's in the sky.
In the clouds, yeah.
Well, a lot of stuff is. And those weird little chicken with people faces. The Ukos.
Those things are creepy looking.
Yeah, they are. The boss fight there, though, I love the dragon.
The dragon, that one took me a minute to figure out exactly. Thankfully, when you fall from very great heights, it only takes away a heart.
Yeah. Actually, I think before that's Temple of Time.
So
where you get the Dominion Rod.
Right. Well, it depends on what order you go in, but I went.
Yeah, well, there's only one order. I it's been years, so I could be out of order in my mind. This is all purely straight off memory.
Okay.
And of course, the last dungeon is Twilight.
So going back to the Sky Temple, I had an issue where I was trying to figure out how to get back to the start of the Sky Temple. Now that I had the double claw shot and knew everywhere I needed to, kind of had an idea where I was supposed to go. I spent a lot of time in there wandering around too, trying to figure out exactly where I needed to go. And that was kind of always I don't want to simplify the games by knowing a waypoint or whatnot, but I got lost a lot in Zelda.
Yeah, it takes a lot of sitting back and just watching stuff to try to figure out,
But then there's like
things.
When you're going to the land of the Zoras, you've got to. You're on this pterodactyl that flies you through, or flies Wolf-Link through. I struggled with that because you have to control that flying dragon. What's the thing from Stranger Things? What's it called? Because that's what I kept.
Demogorgon.
Yes, the Demogorgon. That's what I kept referencing.
They do kind of look like that.
They do. But yeah, you have to fly through that, and I struggled with that a little bit too. It took me several tries to get to the other side on that. But then that's like the only way you can get to some parts of that is to fly through that cave. Thankfully, you get a warp, so you don't have to do that anymore. But
the Twilight Temple, you said on last episode, you're talking about the hand, and I couldn't remember it for the life of me.
Yeah.
But I do. Yeah, you got to get it, and you have to take it to a certain spot. I remember it now because he would get it and take it back to where he first got
Right.
it.
And if he left the current room you were in, you had to go all the way back to where you found him first. Like
Yeah.
you couldn't go to the next room and he'd still be in there. He would be all the way gone. And the thing that made it so difficult in that was whenever he would grab the orb and start his way, you would take your claw shot and the icon would come up, the little yellow aiming icon would come up saying, okay, yeah, you can get it. Well, if you didn't shoot it right before you had to lead him.
Yeah.
If you didn't shoot it right before he was there, if you shot it whenever the target come up, you would never get it. You'd be behind him. So it took a little bit of practice. I struggled the first one, but once I kind of figured out what was going on, I didn't struggle as much in the second one. And that was the one where you had to light up the little orbs and make the platforms appear. So the platforms were kind of moving back and forth. You had to jump on one and wait, jump on another one and wait, and get all the way back through. One of the things that I struggled with, and I don't know why, when you enter into some of these rooms, you're up high, okay, and then when you jump down, you've got to keep pushing frontwards toward the front. And then once you get the soul, you get the platforms to come back to get back outside. I got turned around in those things so many times. I kept trying to go back the way I was going instead of going forward.
Yeah.
And I'd end up with a small key, and then I'd be trying to, how am I supposed to get up this ledge? What am I supposed to do? And I just turn around and I get all the way to the other side. Well, I'm not going. Let me go back to the beginning and reset this thing. I get there and there's a key there that I've got to have. I'm like, well, thankfully I've got this key.
But how awesome did it make you feel when you finally beat those?
Oh, very good.
Yeah, that's the satisfaction from the Zelda
and one of
games.
and because I knew how Zelda, because by this point I knew how Zelda was working. When you get to the outside and you've got the chocolate waterfalls, as I'd like to call them, and you had to get behind those and claw shot back and forth up behind the waterfall and get that main dungeon key, that master dungeon key. If I didn't know how Zelda was and I wasn't exploring at that time, because I didn't know what was back there, I was like, okay, maybe there's a heart piece or something up here, and I got up there and it's a stinking key. But like that would have been frustrating to me to go all the way to where the master door was and then not have that key and have to go all the way back. And that's happened to me on some of the other ones before, but thankfully I didn't. Yeah,
you've got to explore on Zelda games. You've got to look around, and it's kind of built that way.
Well, that's the good thing about the compass and the map as well.
Oh yeah.
I didn't find myself looking at the compass and the map as much this last little bit of playthrough that I had to do, but that first part I was trying to get every.
Did you use the Pro controller or the original?
100%. I used the Pro controller.
So if you use the original, it has the map's
right there as you're playing it. Yeah. It was just too much to keep it charged up.
So after
it was too tempting not to just try to play it on the Pro controller if possible. I didn't get there, so that's literally why I didn't get why I didn't use the Pro controller. Oh, excuse me. I didn't use the screen controller because if I used it, I was too tempted to just play on the screen like the Switch almost.
Yeah.
If you could. I don't know if you could, but if you could, I would have been too tempted to do that.
Which after clearing that, it's when you go to Hyrule Castle. Final Assault in Hyrule Castle. Now, there's two things I want to point out before Hyrule Castle. During the course of the game, you keep coming up against that, what's his name? King Bulblin, the big guy on the horse that you steals the kids.
Yeah.
And you encounter him so many different times during the course of the game that when you get into the castle, he's like, he tells you, like, I respect you. Like, no one's ever beaten me. And he helps you. What's funny is when Midna's like, he can talk?
Yeah. I had no idea he could talk. Well, because you get the key. You have to get that small key from him, I believe. Yeah, because the front door is locked.
Yeah.
You have to get that small key from him. And finally you're sitting there, you're beating him, and he finally says, look, all right, I'm just going to go for the winning side. Just take this.
Yeah. I love that part. The second thing is during the course of the game, you encounter this quote unquote resistance group that's at Thelma's bar in Hyrule Town. And they always, to me, made me think of Final Fantasy characters, the way they look, because they look like stereotypical RPG characters.
Well, and that was one of the things I did want to kind of mention, where the NPCs in this game, don't look exactly right for some reason. I don't know. They're kind of like you said. They kind of have that Final Fantasy RPG
Yeah.
look to them. And that's even current with like even to Breath of the Wild, right? Because
They have some weird looking.
that's the ongoing thing is how great Zelda the game looks and the main characters look, but the NPCs they just look atrocious.
Everybody else just ugly. So
and busty.
And Thelma. Well, when you beat during the course of the Hyrule Castle, they come out and help you.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's got like a rocket launcher.
Yeah. I kept wondering, like, where are these people from? And then I realized,
so, hey man, can I take that rocket launcher with me? And of course you get through it. You beat the game, 4-phase boss. I remember you kept tweeting or texting me pictures of where you were at.
Well, I just wanted you to know, hey, I'm actually because it was the day that I was off with Maze. And I was like, I want him to know I'm putting time into this game so I can get him his system back.
And it was a pretty memorable fight. I mean,
I struggled a bit. I didn't Well, I tell you what I struggled with the most. I struggled with Power Orb Volleyball. I struggled with
that was the Ocarina of Time boss fight with Ganondorf.
Really?
He flings the thing at you, hit it back. And that always gave me anxiety as a kid when I was playing Ocarina.
It kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety because I was like, okay, it's a timing thing. But once I realized it's not really a timing thing, that you've got probably a half a second, between when you press the button till he makes his whole entire swipe. So you could be a little early, but you couldn't be a little late. You could either be early or on time. You couldn't be late because if you were late and he just started his downward motion, you'd get hit.
Yeah.
I probably died 5 or 6 times there. I'm not even kidding. I don't know why. But then the second one, I didn't die, but he ate my lunch for a while when he was the big beast.
Because you had to catch him.
Right.
Which calls back to, early on in the game when Link's wrangling the
Toros.
Yeah. And then also when he's going up, I love when he first gets to the iron boots and he's going up Goron Mountain.
Right.
And they keep rolling at him. He catches them, just flings them out of the way.
Wow, you're pretty strong, little boy.
And so then the next part, you think Midna might have perished because she causes like a big explosion trying to stop Ganon.
Mm-hmm.
You and Zelda get out of there, and then there's Ganon on horseback, and then starts some of the most epic fighting ever.
I struggled.
Really?
I struggled because I only had 3 hearts because I think I had died right before I'd beaten. And I think
I've gone into detail about this boss fight before.
You have on one of our bonus episodes where you rank.
But now you've played it, so now you can attest to.
Yeah. Well, I struggle with the game. I struggle with all 3 of those bosses. The Powerball volleyball. It took me several times to go through it. They would do the volley. There was 3 different attacks. There was the swoop attack. There was the Triforce attack.
Yeah.
And then there was the Powerball attack. And the Powerball attack is one you had to play volleyball with back and forth. And it's like 6 times you got to bounce it before he takes the hit. But
then Dark Beast Ganon.
It was more of a timing thing and knowing where he was coming from.
Yeah.
You had to spin the camera all the time because that door would go, it would kind of go in order. It'd go in order for about 3. So you see it like maybe in the middle, then one to the left and one to the left of that. And then all of a sudden it'd flash away. And then you'd have to find where it was coming from.
If you notice, his weak spot's always his chest because in that flashback scene where he was banished, he was stabbed with that sword right through the chest. That was where the wound was.
Okay.
Which is the same sword he has in the final phase.
Okay.
Which the third phase is when you're riding the horse, you got to get close so Zelda can hit him with the golden arrow.
Right.
Or light arrow.
And then when he's kind of stunned, you're supposed to swipe him with a sword there.
Which, by the way,
and it took a long time for that.
Well, it was a huge deal because in Ocarina, you couldn't swing your sword on Epona. And everyone's like, why
almost
can't you do
wish that you couldn't because it's hard to do. It just, the controls of it's just.
Oh shoot, man! When they first showed that,
imagine that on Wii. Imagine that on Wii.
Oh gosh, I couldn't. When they showed that in the trailer that Link could swing his sword, that got another pop.
Really?
So then the final face off, mano a mano, 1-on-1.
The shield walls were something that kind of didn't like upset me, but it's like, okay, well, I can't get past this area. I've got to defeat.
So that's another callback to Ocarina.
Okay.
Because the final phase of Ganon's fight, he puts that shield wall, he knocks the Master Sword out of your hand, and it's on the other side of the shield wall. So you've got to weaken him before you can get the Master Sword back.
Okay.
But Yeah, just straight up fight. Now there's two ways you can go about this fight.
You explain this to me, and I'll tell you what I did.
So the way I did it is you make a liberal use of all those tricks that the hero shade uses, taught you. The other way is to pull out the fishing pole and cast it at him.
Okay.
And it distracts him. It literally distracts him. Ganon like stops and looks at it it's. People don't know if that's a glitch or if Nintendo made it intentional. But Ganon's like transfixed by the lure you've got on your fishing pole, and then you get some free hits on him.
Wow. So funny stories. It's funny that you mentioned that, because the first thing I did, I took the boomerang and I started throwing it at him. Like, okay, maybe I can distract him just enough or something so I can get some hits. And it would move his cape, and he just kind of keep coming at you. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not it. So then I tried the claw shot, and he would dodge out of the way. I tried all this other stuff. And the one thing I didn't try was a fishing pole, because I was like, man, this is stupid. I would never. What is a stupid fishing pole going to do? And so one thing I didn't try, and I kind of wish I did, because the arrows wasn't doing anything.
It's almost like, you ever seen Shaun of the Dead?
Yeah.
You know, when they first did the zombie, they're throwing everything at them, trying to stop them. I just imagine that's you, like Link's just emptying his pockets. Like,
I mean, at one point, I think I had like 2 arrows left, and I was throwing bombs at him, and he was easily dodging those. And it's like, there's no
got
way.
Man up and fight him.
Well, but you had to get around. It wasn't so much you had to man up and fight him. What I ended up doing was I would just back away from him. Not too far away, because he would kind of charge it. Well, no, that's what you're trying to get. Anyway, I just made him charge me, and then would tap A, and kind of overpower him.
You do that spin around him, and hit him from behind.
Right. Well, I was trying to do some of that spinning and jumping and everything that I had learned, but it had been literally like in real time so long since I learned it that I'd basically forgotten it all. Because there was some of the reptilian with armor people and the flying people. Okay. That I was struggling battling some of those too. The one that I really struggled with, and this was still this was the castle, I believe. The Bud Light Knights.
The Dark Nuts is what they're called.
Dark Nuts?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I struggled with those for a little while until I kind of figured out, okay, I just got to hit him. Like, just literally just go out there and hit. We ain't doing all this fancy smancy stuff. Just go out there and hit him.
That's pretty much it. I
really liked some of the puzzles and some of that, though. I really did enjoy that.
But the Ganondorf fight, when you finally finish him, you have to do that one move that you're required to learn from the hero shade,
which is the
finisher.
The finisher, yeah. And
you kill Ganon in the second most brutal way I've ever seen Ganon killed. It completely impale all the way through.
All the way through, like it's all the way up to the butt of the sword, and he's just standing there.
What's funny is he stands up and he's like, "Oh, this isn't good."
He's like, "Well,"
but the sound he makes when he first running through. That's me when I stub my toe.
Well, and at this point, you and I were kind of talking back and forth, because in the dialogue, Ganon's like, "Well, this doesn't matter. I'll come back because I've got a way of coming back." And it's Zant.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it flashes to Zant, and Zant's just looking at the screen. All of a sudden, he goes and breaks his neck. So we kind of had a little bit of discussion in that, where we either had our theories or what we had read, and mine was that I had thought that Zant kind of had and I actually use this quote, a Darth Vader moment, where he's like, I've been so bad for so long, maybe it's time for me to finally do something good. And he offs himself so Ganon can't come back, or Ganondorf can't come back.
Yeah, maybe not for good intentions, but for if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me.
Maybe. I mean, you can do it any which way you want, or look at it any which way you want, but that's kind of the way that I saw it. You had said that. What did you say?
I don't know.
I can go back through text message if you really want to know.
Nah, it's not important. I mean, it's. I think it was signifying that he wasn't coming back. That this was it.
Okay. So, do you think it's possible that was another? What'd you call it earlier? A
metaphor.
Metaphor. Yeah.
Because both times we've seen Ganondorf ultimately killed, it's been the Master Sword. See, they didn't use the Master Sword when they sealed him and they stabbed him with that other sword.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be the Master Sword. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm looking at what we said because down goes down goes Ganondorf. His death was pretty brutal. And then I said, did Zant just break his own neck? You said, yep. I said, explain that one to me on the podcast. You sent me a snippet. Thus, the realm in which we see Zant after Midna kills him in a state between true life and death. So when Ganondorf was killed, the magic that sustained Zant in the realm was also destroyed. Thus, Zant died, which was represented by the neck snapping.
So in that explanation, it's like they're both clinging to life, but they need each other to live because, like you saw earlier, when Ganondorf absorbed, and I'm using quotation marks, Zant. So it's like they're kind of bound together, and that's a recurring
like
thing.
Like E.T. and Elliot.
And the downfall timeline, yeah.
You're just gonna let that one go.
I am. I'm gonna ignore it. So it's like in the downfall timeline when these people keep trying to revive Ganon, it's almost like he needs some other life to bring him back. I don't know.
Well, you had said, I take it to mean Zant killed himself to sever any chances of Ganon coming back.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I said, Zant had a Darth Vader moment when he snaps ... Bad word, Hammy. I was just texting that. So basically, we were kind of on the same page. And you said second most brutal death. The townspeople doing the Humpty Hump because they're all dancing in the credit scenes. They're all...
So that's the game.
Well, we touched on at the very, very end where Midna kind of shows her true self, and you and I had talked about where she goes to say something to Link, and she goes, and it's like ... And even earlier than that, they had talked about how they could always, kind of quote unquote be together as long as the mirror was together. And then she said, then ... She says, well, I'll see you another time. And then she goes to the mirror and cracks it all. And then, like, if she's wanting to see each other, and then and I asked
I think she realizes they can't, that the realms need to be separate, because the Twilight realm was filled with interlopers who were trying to steal the Triforce. So it's probably going to happen again unless that connection is severed. But no, I don't think it was a romantic thing. I think it was a platonic.
Sure. I mean, like I love you.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
It's like, I love you, my man.
Right. My dude.
Or my dude, yeah.
My dude. I love you.
Yeah.
So before we get complete.
Well, yeah, and before that, I want to go back on some stuff you may have missed.
Okay.
Some optional stuff. Did you do the little side game where you floated down the river and shot balloons?
Yes.
Okay. If you do that at a certain time, I think you get a heart piece.
Yes.
Did you go fishing in the fishing hole?
I did go fishing in the fishing hole.
Did you know if you walk out while back in, it changes seasons?
Did not know that.
And you can catch the Hylian Loach, which is a reference to Ocarina of Time, because you can catch that. It's like a super rare fish. You had to use a illegal sinking lure to get it.
I don't know if I caught that or not.
If you talk to the girl that's in that runs,
shop?
Yeah, Hina, I think.
Maybe.
For one thing, she's actually, her brother and sister are also in the game. Her brother's the guy that sells the lamp oil to you with the big afro.
Okay.
Well, anyway, she every now and then she kind of scratches, and that's a callback to the fishing hole guy in Ocarina, because he was always scratching. And you see a picture of him behind her, so it's like she's a descendant. There's also a thing you can do in her hut called roll goal. Did you do that?
No.
Basically, it's a little mini game where you have a marble and you have to follow this like elevated trail to get to the goal without falling off. The reward is the frog lure to catch the Hylian Loach legally.
Okay.
And let me tell you, that game about drove me nuts. Because in my mind, in order to 100% it,
you had to get it.
You do game 1-1 through 1-8. When you get to 1-8, you get the frog lure. It goes through 8-8. And all it does is fills your pockets. I had to do that. I made myself do it.
I didn't do that.
I made up a lot of new words. Play it because you're on a time limit too.
Oh wow, okay.
And it was hard.
Well, I know the stamps. I didn't get all the stamps, and I know that's kind of a new thing. I didn't get all the stamps, So your playthroughs, did you play it on the Wii U?
No, I played all of them on GameCube.
Okay, so you've not played any of the Wii U
A
versions.
few hours on the Wii U.
Okay, all right. So I don't feel so bad. So I didn't get all the stamps because I wasn't a collector. I was more worried about not so much Sonic the Hedgehogging the game where I just get to point A to point B, but I wasn't as immersed in the story as like actual Zelda fans are. I mean, I'm a fan of the game and everything now because of all my playthroughs, but I didn't do all that. So I didn't get all the stamps. I didn't get quite all the bugs.
I got all the bugs for Agatha.
So Agatha seems like, who was it? You remember the boss fight in Arkham City where you had to destroy all the Titan containers for Bane?
Yeah.
Then you go back and see Bane. And he's like, okay, well, that makes this the only Titan container. I'm going to use it to destroy you, Batman. It's kind of like that. Like, oh, go get this bug. Oh, go get this bug. And I'm going to kill you now. Like, I don't know why. I just kind of got that vibe.
No,
from
she
that.
didn't. She's not evil.
I kind of wanted to make that.
I think you get a heart piece from her, actually.
Well, that
and see, this is the first game where you have to get 5 pieces of heart rather than 4. For
right, and that freaked me out too because I wasn't used to that. I was like,
now,
okay, there's 4.
There's also a piece of armor, the red armor.
I got it. I don't know how to use it, but I got it. It uses rupees.
It does, but it makes you invincible while it's using rupees. And the original GameCube version, you could only hold up
once. I was like, I don't know.
You could only hold up to like 2,000 rupees, I think. Maybe more. This game increases that. And if you play through that dungeon, the new dungeon with Wolf Link, it increases it to like 10,000.
Okay.
That's a huge deal because later in the game...
I don't think I wore it but like once. I was like, I don't have enough rupees.
Later in the game, you find the Cave of Ordeals.
Okay.
It's an Arbiter's Grounds. You have to go down...
Which one's Arbiter's Grounds? Desert?
The desert. Okay. Sand. So you have to go through it. It's 50 levels of increasing difficulty. Like at the bottom, you got to fight 3 of those dart nuts at once.
At the bottom level?
Yeah, at the final level. Now, every few levels, there's a fairy fountain that'll heal you.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also be using up all your healing during the whole time. Now, if you beat it the first time, you get access to this liquid that you can fill up at the fairy fountains that replenishes all your health. And I think your magic. Was magic in this one?
No.
Okay, just your health then.
Thank God.
Throw it back. But if you go back through it a second time when it's harder, you can get like something with the postman. But anyway,
stupid postman.
Yeah.
Hey, my dude. Hey, Mr. My Dude. Mr. My Dude.
He was in Ocarina as well. So that armor is valuable there because it's like, you're not taking any damage, so you're saving your health. So if you can get to that final room with that armor, which, when you run out, you can't move if you run out of rupees. But to have that for that fight's huge.
So does that mean you've got that many number of seconds in that armor? Like, how does it?
Yeah, I think it's a rupee a second, but if you get hit, it knocks more of them off.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, you can burn through your money.
Yeah, I don't remember being in that armor, but maybe twice.
There's also a room in Hyrule Castle that's got different looking ghosts in it than normal.
Oh, okay.
There's also Breath of the Wild concept art in one of the stores. That's new for the HD version. Just a bunch of little different.
The little pogos. I didn't get all the little pogos.
Yeah, the pose. That was something else to get.
Kind of remind me of Luigi's Mansion a little bit.
So the pose were in Ocarina, but you wanted to catch the Skulltulas in that one, the golden Skulltulas. But again, it's just a lot of similarities.
A lot of callbacks. So
the guy who runs that game in Hyrule Town.
Now Hyrule Town, I got the first one with a single claw shot. I didn't have the double at the time.
You can't do the last one without the double.
Okay, well I didn't try the second one.
He's dressed.
He was so mad. He was mad that I got it the first. I was like, oh well.
He's a normal looking person, but he's dressed like Tingle, who is a recurring character in a couple other games.
Okay.
So just a lot of little references to, usually tongue in cheek, to other Zelda games. But overall, what'd you think of the game?
Overall, I really liked it. I liked the story, although I'm learning now that the story is pretty much the same with a couple of little changes here and there.
It is.
So I mean, but I didn't find myself deep into the lore of Zelda. Like even with Halo, I struggle with some of that lore, but I'm super interested in it. Like I'll look into it and try to figure out, what does this mean? What does this mean? Where did this come from? That kind of thing. It interests me. It has piqued my interest. I would almost like to play through it again. Cough, cough, Nintendo. And that,
On
Switch. But at the same time, I don't know if it really goes into enough lore because there's a lot of callbacks. So you almost have to play the other game to get to reference the callbacks. So, it's almost like I would love to understand it more, but I can't understand it without playing a completely different game. It's like playing Metal Gear Solid 2 without ever playing Metal Gear Solid 1.
Right.
Or Donkey Kong Country 2 without ever playing Donkey Kong
But they're
Country
still
1.
standalones. It's just
if
you want to go deeper.
Yeah, if you want to go deeper, you've got to play the other games.
I mean, look, it's a kiddie pool, or you buy from Walmart. It's fun to play in, but if you want to go deeper, you gotta really
shell out some money and get the rest of them.
Yeah.
Well, and this is what I was going to ask you before we completely move off of Twilight Princess. Do you think, and Zelda's kind of notorious for not going back to things very often, so it kind of intrigues me that they've made a Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah.
And it kind of intrigues me that there is a Majora's Mask, which is a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, they don't do it a whole lot.
Do you think they'll bring Midna back for anything? Make another game? Twilight Princess 2? Anything like that?
Man, I don't know. It would be nice. I mean, she made an appearance in Hyrule Warriors, but that's not, canon.
It's not canon. It's just
I just they don't go back for a lot of reasons. I don't know why. There's only been a few direct sequels. Link to the Past had Link's Awakening in the 2 Oracle games.
Mm-hmm.
That was the same Link.
I really think that Link's Awakening will probably be the next Zelda game I put a lot of time into. If it's not me finishing from episode 30 in 2019, Link to the Past. I still haven't finished it. I put a little bit more time into it, but there's 7 Dark World castles I got to go through, or dungeons I've got to go through, and I'm just really not looking forward to that.
Well, I've played,
although I can rewind it. So
I've played through every 3D Zelda game except one, which is now going to be a lot easier to play through.
Well, let's take a break.
Or to take a step back.
Let's take a step back.
So we were going to record this on Tuesday.
I had mentioned Tuesday because I was off work.
Because I knew I wanted to do this game for this week because it's the 35th anniversary.
Right. So Hammy basically said, you've got to get it done by Sunday.
And you called me Tuesday. It's like when I recorded tonight, I was like, hold on. Nintendo's got a direct tomorrow. The first one since September of 2019.
In 500 and something days.
It took them as long to get this next direct out as it did for you to beat Twilight Princess.
A game I had 45 hours in.
So that's 2 things from 2019 that were unfinished for so long.
And are finished now.
So here's my expectation was the same as most everyone else's. They're doing first direct in like a year and a half during the 35th anniversary week of Zelda. It's got to be a lot of Zelda news.
So, and even leading up to this, I was super pumped for it because we had a Discord chat going about just this and talking about what we were going to be able to see and what we weren't. And I was sitting there I was like, okay, if I leave at 3:30, I can be home by 4 and watch this at home.
Oh, I kept texting Jeff throughout the day, 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours. Dude, I was so hyped and I felt like a clown. I think a lot of people did. Over 1 million people watched it on YouTube live.
Really?
Just on YouTube. That's not counting Twitch.
On Twitter. I was on Twitter and watched it.
You see who all watched it on Twitter and Twitch and then Nintendo's website.
And see, y'all were
over
texting,
1 million.
Y'all were on computer, but texting in the Discord. Well, I was watching on my phone, so I couldn't text as a lot of this stuff was being announced. But I was just thinking, okay, they're leading up. They're leading up. They're leading. It's here. Here's the carrot.
You know what's
Here's the
funny?
carrot.
I thought that they were giving us little tidbits here and there. Like they
Mhm.
showed Miiverse and they showed a horse. It's like, oh, we can get a horse. I was like, that horse looks like Epona. They're foreshadowing Zelda. And then it gets to some other game and some princess talking about, I don't need a hero to save me. It's like, oh, that's another Zelda reference. They're building up to it.
Well, not only that, but the very first thing they did, they announced a new Smash Brothers character, and there was direct dialogue between this new character and Link. You know, and they were talking about battling each other and everything. It's like, okay, well, here's like another reference to Link. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
This is it.
And
then Ajianuma shows up, and it's like, oh, this is it. This is it. Because I even typed in the Discord, all caps, here we go. And he's like, if you were expecting news about Breath of the Wild 2, I hate to disappoint you. We have nothing. And that was when my heart shattered.
Was it?
Well, no, I'll take that back. I was like, oh, crap. Well, we kind of, didn't, it's like, okay, no Breath of the Wild 2 news. They said they're planning on it sometime this year.
Right.
They didn't say for sure. They said they're planning on it. More news, not the game.
Right.
No telling when that game may come out.
2025.
But I was like, okay, well, maybe they got something for Zelda 35th. No mention of it. As far as I know, Nintendo hasn't even tweeted. I've checked all their official Twitters, nothing about Zelda 35th. What they did give us, though, was Skyward Sword, HD remastered for Switch. Now, I didn't play through Skyward Sword because I hated the Wii motion controls.
Right.
And in this, they start off showing the Joy-Cons. You can use them just like...
And that's what I thought, too. Is like, man, it's Wii all over.
I almost punched my computer. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is a slap in the face. That Zelda game sold poorly.
Yeah, but because of that.
Exactly because of that. I mean, from everyone I've heard, it's a great game. It's just I don't want to play that.
Yeah, I don't have to move to do it. I want to push buttons.
So then he's like, but we also have a mode where you can press buttons. I was like, oh, thank God. And then he showed what that was, where the right analog is now your sword swing.
All sword.
Here's my question: how are you gonna move the camera?
You know how you're gonna move the camera.
How?
You're gonna tilt the damn controller.
Tilt the darn controller.
I said damn it in the last one. You didn't catch it. So look, this has got me upset.
You know what? I'm gonna give it to you.
There you go. Because this got me upset, and I'm not like the biggest Zelda fan that's in this room right now, and it's got me upset.
So now we're getting Skyward Sword remastered slightly, but I'll play through it. I will. I'll finally play through it because this is a little bit closer to what the controller should be.
A little bit, but again,
it's still a $60 game.
Well, we talked about that. If it's going to sell, they're going to sell it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, they're going to make money off of it. It's just...
Well, they have to because they can't make any new money off of anything because they won't release freaking Zelda 35th.
By the way, the Joy-Cons, yes, I'm going to get them. Special Joy-Cons. They were sold out in an hour.
Really?
Everywhere. And they're already on eBay for like $200. If you're listening to this and you're a scalper, you can go straight to hell. I hate scalpers. They've ruined so much. I know the PS5 and Xbox Series X folks are having a hard time because they're making as much money off those systems as the companies are.
Yeah. And
I know the freaking scalpers with their computer programs got all these because they know.
Yeah. See, I don't understand why Microsoft and PlayStation or Sony haven't gone strictly to you have to buy it from our website. That's the only way you can get it.
I mean, it'll still get scalped.
Maybe. So you and I...
So no Zelda 35th.
Yeah. So you and I had a little bit of a discussion about how dumb Nintendo is. You had made mention of how Nintendo was in the red on a lot of things about basically being a business, a video game.
Oh, yeah. Switch was make or break for them.
Right. So, and then we made the mention that some of the stuff that they're doing seems like it's not so much that they don't care, but it seems like they are almost purposely doing it. Like
they know what people
got
want.
all this stuff that they could do that would just make people go bananas for everything.
And they have to know it.
They have to, and they keep putting out. I don't want to call it garbage because there's people there that are really going to like this stuff. Jeff being one. Splatoon, I couldn't care less for.
Yeah.
I literally couldn't care less for.
I mean, we've had 3 Splatoon games since the last new Metroid.
Right. You and I talked about Metroid. They keep
But
kind
Metroid
of,
doesn't sell that well, unfortunately.
but it's a great series.
It is. It's just, I don't know. I mean, in Splatoon, I have no interest in Splatoon, but I'm glad that they're getting a new game and they're excited about it.
But they can literally print any kind of. They can print all the money they wanted. They could release these games one at a time, and there would be people that would buy them. Everyone. I'm pointing at Hammy. Literally pointing at Hammy.
If they showed like, hey, here's Ocarina, Majora's Mask,
here's Ocarina time. It's going to cost you $75. Done.
They're all $75 a piece. I would just say,
shut up and take my money.
Here's my bank account number.
Yep.
Shut up and take my rupees.
So I don't get it. I don't know why. COVID aside, I mean, if COVID's the excuse, just say that's the reason.
I think it has to have some bearing. I mean, it's affected everything else.
Well, right.
So I'm not going to fault them over that. And I do want them to take their time on Breath of the Wild 2 and get it right. They delayed Breath of the Wild 1 quite a bit, but what came out was a freaking masterpiece.
Yeah. But
the Zelda 35th, I don't.
But it's almost to a fault. We described this as we talked about this as well. It's almost to a fault that they do this. That you've made games so good that bar is so high that you put that pressure on yourself to hit that bar.
But they keep hitting it and they keep raising it. I mean, my gosh, 35 years.
At what cost though?
What do you mean at what cost?
What are you going to do if the next Zelda game you play, next new Zelda game, not a remaster, not a remake or anything, what are you going to do if the next Zelda game you play isn't till we're 40?
I'm going to play it.
But you won't be ticked off that it's taken 3 more years?
No. Hey, if someone's working on my car, I want them to get the brakes fixed before they give it back to me.
Even if it's 3 years before you get it and you've got to hoof it everywhere else you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look.
I want it to be right.
Breath of the Wild.
And I want it to be good, but I don't want it to take 6 years to do. This is my issue with the NCAA. You can't have all 3. Well, maybe not, but this is my issue with NCAA. They have not made an NCAA since 2013. That's the physical year, 13. This is year 7. You can't tell me in the last 7 years EA Sports has done nothing with that franchise that it's going to take them 2 years to put out the next football game.
I don't know.
There's no way. There's no way. There's got to be people that have been working on something this entire time.
But here's the thing with the Zelda games. 35 years of Game of the Years. Breath of the Wild, 2017 Game of the Year. Before that, Skyward Sword. I think it got Game of the Year. Twilight Princess, Wind Waker. They're all hits that completely changed the game. And my gosh, we're seeing a ton of games coming out that were heavily inspired by Breath of the Wild. They take their time, but when they come out, it's well worth the wait.
Well, how many Zelda games are there total?
19.
It's 19 games in 35 years. What does that average to? Just about 1.5 ish,
maybe.
But when was the majority of those games put out?
90s.
Game Boy.
No, Game Boy had 1. Link's Awakening. Game Boy Color had 2, 3 if you count the DX version of Link's Awakening. Game Boy Advance had 2. No. Game Boy Advance had.
It just seems to me like Nintendo
had 2.
drops
had 4
the ball.
swords and Minish Cap.
It just seems to me like Nintendo drops the ball on their IP.
Well, you're cracking me up because you're saying they're dropping the ball. We're talking about some of the games considered to be the best in the world.
Well, they're dropping the ball in the fact that, okay, there was one Mario. Well, if you count Paper Mario, there's 2 Mario games that come out for 64. There was 2 Mario games that come out for GameCube. 3. What did Galaxy 2 come out on? Wii. So I don't know. I mean, you got 1, 2 if you really want to call Zelda 2 a Zelda game.
What system are you talking about?
NES.
Yeah, it had 2, 1 and 2. The original and the Adventures of
You
Link.
only got 1 on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, which is kind of baffling, but
you got 2 on 64.
Got 3 on GameCube. Wind Waker, Four Swords Adventures, and
that's not including
Twilight
any of the
Princess.
other ones that came out on it. You know, the majority, you know,
the re-releases.
Right.
On Wii, you had Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Wii U, you had Breath of the Wild.
I don't know. I just thought of something. If you take
on Switch,
if you switch the name Zelda and put in Halo, it's the exact same thing. So I can't say anything. I don't know. I just want it.
And I'm not asking for Breath of the Wild 2. I mean, I know that's going to take a while. I mean, the only thing we've seen
and
from it...
And I guess that's the thing that I'm saying. I'm not asking for anything new. I'm asking for easier ways to play the old stuff.
That would be awesome. I mean, right now, I think the system that has the most Zelda games on it's 3DS. I think.
That sounds right.
Are the most that you can play on one system, because some of them would be DS games, some of them is through the virtual console. But no, take their time on Breath of the Wild 2, because I know it's going to be great.
Well, don't take your time if you're not going to completely remaster it. Don't drop the ball on the 35th, because you're dropping the ball on the 30. You didn't drop the ball on the 35th for Mario, I don't think, but you're going to drop the ball on the 35th for Zelda. You're going to drop the ball on the 35th for Metroid.
The 25th for Pokemon.
The 25th for Pokemon.
And the 40th for Donkey Kong.
Exactly.
It seems like Mario is the only one they really care about. You know, we talked earlier about Super Nintendo World's just Mario.
Yeah.
But should it be called Super Mario World in real life?
I don't know.
But no, I was hoping for a Zelda 35th announcement. I was
fingers crossed we might still get it, but given that today of all days is the actual anniversary, nothing happened. That's it's disheartening, man.
It is. And there's rumors going around that we're still getting Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on Switch, but I feel like they would have said something. I mean, Skyward Sword's not coming out until July.
Yeah. It can't be that hard to port these games over.
I don't know. I have no idea. So I can't say anything on that.
Well, let's end this podcast because I'm actually depressed right now.
I would think that
I'm physically depressed.
I would think that they'd want to show more interest. It just seems like they don't show a whole lot of interest in the same things that their fans do.
Perhaps.
But then again, I mean, it could just be I'm looking at things through Zelda goggles.
I would like to think of Nintendo is going to pull a Sega Saturn and like just unannounced tomorrow announce, hey, Zelda 35th. Oh, by the way, Zelda 35th.
And it's available right now.
Yeah. A boy can dream. A boy can dream.
You can.
All right, well, let's end this shenanigans because we've been in here for over an hour and a half now, I'm sure.
Yeah, what's our time at?
We are at 1 hour, 36 minutes, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50 seconds.
There you go. So good talk. Glad to talk about Twilight Princess. I hope people who listen to this and know me don't think any less of me now, because I'm.
Well, we nerded out just a little bit, but that's what you're going to get. I mean, we're passionate about some things, some of it's, little not, anatomically correct blue hedgehogs. I don't know. Is anatomically correct? I don't know. I don't know. There's no such thing as a blue hedgehog. I'll say that.
That we know of.
Well, that's not genetically engineered.
Somewhere.
But, everybody's passionate about something, and this is one of the things Hammy's passionate about. So, and through Hammy, he's going to make me passionate about it as well. Zelda 35th. You heard it here first. Or second, or 7th. I don't know.
I'm depressed now, too.
I'm literally depressed about it. Like, I don't know.
Oh, well. Let's go play some Wind Waker.
Let's do it.
The minute.